there is no one leader, like a great leader that fits to everybody. You cannot be a people pleaser.
Welcome to the Human Leadership House podcast. This is your home, this is your place, this is your club. I'm Alberto, your host and creator of Licksticks.com, a zine leaders read to get better of what they do. Today we're going to have a practical and meaningful episode because today we're going to learn from someone I really admire. He's a founder, university lecturer, and lead community ambassador. I'm talking about Stavy Papasosteriou. She's the CEO of Work Unlocked, a leading HR consultancy firm that helps organizations create psychologically healthy, high-performing workplaces. Stavy has worked with global organizations including the Red Cross, Headspace, and Coursera. She also has a knack for turning evidence-based psychological principles into practical, scalable programs that unlock potential and foster cultures of true belonging. Today, she's going to share with us her personal way to stay true to herself as a leader. Stavy, this is a pleasure. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Alberto. Thank you so much for this amazing introduction.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm really happy to have you here.
I'm happy to be on, and thank you so much for the invitation.
Let's go to the questions. The first one is, tell me one regular practice that's very unique to you that helps you stay true to yourself.
Um, so that is something that I developed over the years. I call it the 90-second service check-in. And what I do is before every meeting with a client or with the team, I take 90 seconds to think about how I can best service them.
Okay.
I ask myself three questions. The first question is, who am I serving? Which helps me ground myself and focus on the other person and get out of my own head and my own needs. Then the second question I ask myself is, how does good service looks to them? Which means, what is kind of the expectation from me and what they would like, to get out of the time with me. And then the third question that I ask myself is, what could be a action that I could take to help them get from point A to point B. Having a service oriented mindset, it's very similar to what we call a servant leadership.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean people pleasing or self sacrificing. It's more around, creating the best conditions for others to flourish and then also creating standards to make that happen. And I think this is what leadership is actually about, serving others and enable others to do their best work and reach their full potential while you are supporting them in this journey.
Oh, this is awesome. And how
Yes.
how did you arrive to such a practice? I mean, was something you learned from someone else, from a past experience, from a book. What made you incorporate this practice into your routine?
Well, this it took me a lot of like many years. I think I started around when I was 14. In during my adolescent years, that's where you start shaping your personality and kind of thinking, what do I want to do with my life? Who am I? And during those years, I was faced with many difficulties, personal and family problems, and it was a tough time for me. I can remember feeling a lot of frustration, sadness, hopelessness, and my brain, I guess, as a survival instinct, started like brought me into the space where I had to start the pursuit of happiness. And I started asking myself, how can I have a happier life? How can I, be joyful and just really happy inside? And that's when I started reading a lot of the work of Aristoteles, the Greek philosopher, and his framework of a happy life, which is basically a meaningful life. He differentiates between the hedonic and eudaimonic way of life. And basically, he describes a happy life, a life of service, a life of purpose, and a meaningful life, which basically translates into being of service to others. And in order to do that, you need to develop virtues and excellence in your character, develop a very ethical character, and try to live a virtuous life. Which also, in order for that to happen, you need to develop practical wisdom, which basically means develop daily practices that allow you to develop those virtues and this excellence. So that's where it started. And of course, I never thought that this is something that I could use in my leadership style or growing up, but it put me onto the road of finding my own purpose, which brought me to the organizational psychology career. But then at the same time, because it's something that you can use in your own personal life, in how you show up at work or for your family members, I started developing practices and expanding this over the years into shaping my own leadership style and how I can help others become better. In this specific essence, when it comes to my career, means how can help people have better time at work, and because we spend a third of our lives working, so I felt like this is a very meaningful purpose. But this also helps me persevere when tough times come as a leader. For example, when I have tough conversations with teams or when I have problems and I'm tired because you have projects that need to be delivered, but at the same time, you need to cater to people's like personal needs and emotional frustrations. I like to take this like the 90-second service check-in, which is kind of like this grounding technique that helps me come back to present, remind me of my purpose, remind me that this is part of a larger goal, and my own frustrations are just a tiny problem, and I need to um, get out of this space and think of how persevering and staying, like having this service oriented mindset can help others at that time.
This is awesome. This is awesome. That reminds me about two things. The first one, I've been rereading the Essentialist book
Mhm.
written by Greg McKeown. I'm on a book club right now, and this is the main book of this month. And there's a phrase that says something like this: "Decision is not something that you have, but something that you do."
Mhm.
So he says that it's an action, it's an option, and you remind me about that. Back in the day when I was young, I loved to play RPG games, role playing games. For example, Dungeons and Dragons.
Mhm.
And you can play it as a character. You design your character and etc. and be the protagonist of some adventures. But also, there's another role. It is called the Dungeon Master. Is the one who set the stage and let the friends have fun by providing adventures and monsters. And I love that role. I was very comfortable creating the setting. And that has influenced the way I lead as well.
And it sounds also, this kind of service oriented mindset because you create a nice space for your friends to have fun and you create this environment for them.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. Thank you, Stavy. Okay, one question. Maybe this is a tough one. What might our leaders do to overcome the pressure to fit a certain leadership way, one that is regarded as the norm, but somehow doesn't resonate with them?
Mhm. That's an excellent question, Alberto. Fear, like fear of needing to comply with the norm is actually fear of exclusion. You're afraid that if I don't do what the norm does, then I'm going to be excluded. But there's nothing worse than losing oneself in order to fit to someone else's norms and values. I hear it very often with other leaders, especially women, that say, Stavy, I am not like this. I don't like yelling. I don't like pushing my people.
Hmm.
I like saying thank you and I like showing appreciation. But this is perceived as a weakness. So they're kind of frustrated as to, what is the right way to lead. And there are two aspects to this. The first aspect starts from our childhood, where basically our prototype of a good leader is the prototype of the first authority person that we had in our lives. So, for example, if someone was raised by very authoritarian parents, then they respect leaders that are also authoritarian. So, if you have a leader that is very team oriented and empathetic, then they perceive this as a weakness. So
Mm.
not every person is looking for the right leader, and you cannot, as a leader, fit into everybody's expectations. So what I would say is you start kind of like find your own leadership style by identifying who you are and being very clear, first, what are your own values, and then based on your own values to identify what behaviors do you need to develop and exhibit to live in accordance with those values. And then those behaviors translate also into leadership principles that are true to yourself. And that will help you to authentically show up. And people have a sense, they can sense when you're being authentic and what not. And when you're being authentic, we have this law of reciprocity. People reciprocate, and they also show more understanding, even when you make mistakes, because they know that they come from a place of goodwill and from a space where you're trying to do good things for others. So I would say my advice would be find your values, so find out what behaviors you need to showcase, and then lastly also define what you're not going to do, because there are times where maybe senior leaders come to you and they impose a norm to you. So, for example, you need to push your team to perform faster or better. We need more sales. We need more this. We need more that, and they bring down the cascade this pressure onto team leaders, and then those team leaders they feel pressure to put on that pressure on their team members. And I know it's tough to push back, but I think one good thing that you can do at that moment as a leader is to reflect on what good does it serve, putting all that pressure or doing, whatever norm someone is trying to impose on you, because it may be a good thing. You never know. But if you reflect on what good does it serve, and if I do this, how is it going to help my team flourish and succeed? Then you will have a quick answer into, do I need to disregard it or maybe redesign it a bit or maybe adapt it in a better way so that, we can find ourselves in the middle and come up with a solution that works for everybody. Yeah, so this is like the short answer to it. But I think also, Alberto, just a last note on this is you need practices for this. So even when you identify your own unique style, you need to come up with this practical wisdom that I was talking about in the beginning, to bring those values and virtues and your pursuit for excellence into your everyday practices. So you need as a leader like micro practices in your everyday life, in your also life at work. For example, if you're someone that is, prioritizing people is very important to you, or um, and being empathetic, then you need to ensure that maybe you have daily meetings or some type of practice to bring that to life. And one good thing that I like to do every night is reflect on the day. And maybe if you say as a leader, I want to be more empathetic, then you can reflect every night before you go to bed. How did I show empathy today? Or who did I help flourish today because of how I led? And this is also a nice feedback, it creates this positive feedback loop in your head and helps you reinforce these practices because you see the good that you're bringing. So this is kind of a nice self motivation to keep on going.
This is gold. Thank you. I love the practicality of your advice. I got a set of all-rounder questions to stay grounded as a leader. I'm going to share those questions as well on the show notes. And if you want to share something, please do.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And I love, like the word that you said, staying grounded. This is an excellent way to start as a leader, regardless of what your style is, staying grounded and having this awareness, being in the present moment. It is very, very important to transcend all our egos. Our
Mm.
egos drive our everyday lives. That's how we all are. But we need to get out of this space, and the only way to do this is by staying grounded, bringing ourselves to the present moment. And I think it's an excellent addition to what you said, Alberto. Making sure that you're present, get out of your own head and everything is going to be better.
Yes, yes. It takes practice, but it's possible.
It does. It does. And I don't know about you, Alberto, what has helped me is meditation.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
moment I started practicing meditation, it was so frustrating in the beginning because you will notice all these thoughts that you have in your head that you didn't even know you had. But then with time and the patience that you need to show to yourself first to accept those thoughts and let them be and then disregard them and let them go away without thinking about it too much, it also helps you connect yourself with your own self, and over time, you just also have more empathy and love for everybody around you.
Yeah, yeah. My first time meditating, at first it was, this storm of ideas. Then I was focused on an idea, and I created something really great out of nothing. But that's not necessarily the point of meditating. And then I enter into a deeper phase where I can just, you know, be patient and be observant.
When I started meditating, is the first time that I actually noticed my my dialogue, how I speak to myself.
Mm.
So, for example, when I would start meditate, I would, for example, like a thought would cross my mind, and then my immediate response to myself would be like, what are you thinking about? That is nonsense. You're crazy. You can't do this. It's this very kind of mean self talk. And of course, the way that you talk to yourself is also the way that you show up for others. So, if you start changing that self talk and, you show more compassion to your own self and say, oh, that's an interesting thought that you have, Stavy. Let's let it go. Then when you're talking with other people, of course, you're not going to be mean to them, but you may have like strict thoughts. But then the
Mhm.
more you meditate, the more present you are, and the more you practice this practical wisdom, then, the more you change how you speak with others, communicate with others. So when an employee comes to you, like a team member, and you're thinking about, why are you bothering me with this? Then with time, you change also these reactions into, well, where is this coming from? Why is this a problem to you? Talk to me about it. Or how can I help you? Because you understand that, we are all actually just one.
Yeah, so true. So true. Thank you. And Stavi, what are you thinking? What else? Is there anything else that you would like to say to our listeners?
I feel like our listeners are going to start, maybe purchase a meditation app. I think this is maybe a way to start. But all in all, I think that there is no one leader, like a great leader that fits to everybody.
Mm.
You cannot be a people pleaser. Being a leader doesn't mean, leaving behind who you are or just having everybody being happy or being liked by everyone. It's rather, having a clear purpose and inspiring others also through that purpose. It's very similar to MLK's dream speech. A leader could be, maybe a coach at a football team that just believed in you, right? Or a math teacher that helped you learn something that you hated before. A leader, it's not the title that makes you a leader. I think what makes you a leader is the fact of having followers. You can't be a leader without the followers, which is an excellent thing. We're all followers to some type of leader, And in order for people to follow, they need to identify with who you are and your dream and your purpose. And those who don't align with that, then maybe it's not the right space for them, which is also okay. That's not a reflection of how good you are. And if you are a good leader, you also need to let those people maybe flourish somewhere else or in a different team, because that's what they need. But at the end of the day, I think that as long as we try to show up for others, do good, and go beyond our own needs, our need for comfort, our need for speed, or our need for having everything easy, then you are better off than 99% of all other leaders. And be patient with yourself. It's a journey, and just keep becoming better and truer to your own self. And this is going to be reflected into how others perceive you as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Stavy. Thank you. And how can we connect with you?
Well, on every major social media platform, we can connect on LinkedIn, also through my website, www.workunlocked.com, on Instagram at workunlocked, or, through your own podcast. If they have any questions, just let me know. And I'd love to help anybody and be of service to anybody that feels that can benefit from what I can offer.
And if you want to connect with me, you can go to LinkedIn, DM me, or go to connect.albertocblanco.com or subscribe to my zine, leaksticks.com. Thank you, Stavy. I have a blast, basically.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Alberto. It was an honor being on this podcast with you, and I enjoyed it very much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about this stuff.
You're welcome.